and Schalke decide to do. So straight out the gate, Braum off the table. If more supports get banned, I guess that theory of Nami then also gets raised in priority.
That's definitely true. We've seen a lot of Braum and Bards being taken off the table relatively early on because of how powerful they are in the bottom lane right now. The Rise ban doesn't really surprise anyone, I feel. Currently sitting on a 96.4% ban rate. Definitely a strong champion that, while nerfed on this patch, is still considered one of the most powerful mages in the game.
And Schalke are saying mid lane is the target. Rise off the table, Vlad off the table. Got some time to play with. We'll see where they decide to go next. I think that's a respect ban there towards Gilius. He tore Unicorns of Love apart with that Elise pick last week. But Nidalee is still up and available, which is the one that we have seen banned a couple of times and picked a couple of times throughout the day. We'll find out what Schalke decide to ban at their last one.
So there's still quite a lot of things available right now, given that the Kindred is still up. The Nidalee is going to be the final ban, so that jungle pressure being unavailable from both junglers, but this does mean that the Gragas is still there. We did see the Kha'Zix come out earlier. Interesting that Febiven mentioned it's because it can actually apply a lot of early game pressure, which is quite an interesting idea, and that was one of the reasons why we saw Nidalee and Kindred sitting at the top of the table. So it'll be interesting to see this adaptation, but it's actually this Rek'Sai that's being the priority for Trashy. Now, we did see him play it last week against a Rocket, but that was in their loss.
Yeah.
So he didn't quite have the same sort of impact on that Rek'Sai that he was able to have on the Gragas.
Went 4, 4, and 6, and with that locking down as its first pick, it allows Gilius some wiggle room. He can decide if he wants to go for the Gragas, if he wants to go for a Lee Sin, which is something that he's been actually quite famous for in the past. But what else does Schalke consider? What priority or power picks are we missing?
The first one that comes to me is the Bard. Sprattel, back when he used to play for Elements, used to bring out the Bard back then. I'm sure he's still familiar with the champion right now. Still has a lot of power in the current meta. There are a lot of mid laners available right now. The Azir, the Viktor. We could potentially see the Swain out as well, something that was brought out from both these teams in the past. It depends on where they want to put their priority and which lane they want to focus on.
Well, it does look like support was the lane. However, it is the Karma that's locked in there for Sprattel. Seen a lot more of that today, as well as Fox getting his hands on Azir. Played it once, went unkilled at 6, 0, and 2. And I mean, I guess the safe pick into Azir would be the Viktor. If
Yes.
Sencux wanted to go with that traditional option.
You could go Yasuo as well. That would quite an annoying matchup for the Azir, but if you're going for something more standard, then the Viktor would make a lot of sense. I quite like this Rise that we're seeing in the Karma, simply because she does offer a bit of a niche engage and disengage down the bottom lane. She can offer a decent amount of peel for the vast majority of AD carries in the game right now, and she can be quite the threatening lane bully as well.
Lane bully, you mean Bard Caitlyn?
Yeah, that too.
That is a terrifying lane that nobody wants to get into. So does this set off alarm bells for Schalke? I mean, they've got Karma, who's no slouch herself, but that is a very, very difficult lane to play into if you are not going to look for a lane swap.
So far, to me, everything is going the way Splyce want it. They have a strong early jungler that can scale really nicely into the bin late game with the Cinderhulk build. You have this Caitlyn Bard, which not only allows you to set up for engages, it sets up nicely for picks, and you can set up all kinds of sieges. So Splyce, something that they do is actually have really good early games and are actually really good at setting up picks. The way in which they won their game against Vitality and the way in which they won their game against Rocket was just catching their opponents off guard regularly, and a way to do that is with this Bard Rek'Sai combo. So far I think Splyce have picked a composition that's fitting straight into the way they like to play.
Yeah, and especially because the champions are very good at the early to mid stages of the game. Maybe, you know, the Bard, the Rek'Sai in particular. You touched on the early game. You know, Schalke and Splyce do relatively well. Schalke are actually slightly better when it comes to average gold lead at 10, though. So the opening 10 minutes are going to be very, very interesting.
We do have to remember that Schalke did go up against Unicorns of Love, who they did dismantle.
Okay, fair point. Fair point. It does skew those stats ever so slightly. I don't think we've mentioned it just yet. The Gragas locked in for Gilius. No one's surprised by that.
Nope.
The Ezreal, I mean, Ezreal Karma sounds terrifying to me, but you should be able to stand far enough back, maybe, to deal with Caitlyn Bard if you get locked into a 2v2.
Personally, I think this would have been a great situation for an Ashe to be picked up, because we heard from Febiven last week on the desk that Ashe is actually quite a good pick into the Caitlyn in terms of the 1v1. When you pair that up with a Karma, she compensates for all the weaknesses of Ashe, but they have decided to go for the Ezreal. Hits that spike come the mid and late game, reliant on the tier. is pretty good at team fighting, but better at poke. And when you pair that up with the Azir, who, even after the nerfs on patch 6.11, still has that power in the mid to late game where he's very much about get these 2 items, really good in team fights, really good at keeping you at arm's length and doing tons of damage. Good
luck keeping some of Splyce's targets at arm's length, though. Their team composition is locked down. Wunder has got his hands on Fizz, so there's going to be some options to split push, as well as some options to, you know, pick off a target with that Chum the Waters. Sencux with a wave clear team fighting Viktor. I think a pretty well-rounded composition here from the Splyce squad.
So you have, you actually do have quite a good 1-3-1 setup if you decide to use the Rek'Sai in the side lane, something that we saw a lot from Dan in the Challenger series, where he'd go Black Cleaver and just chuck the Rek'Sai in that side lane. But this was, again, something that we heard Feberman talking about, where if you're going to play Caitlyn, you can't afford to put her in a side lane. It's very risky to do. It's very easy to capitalize. So just, you need to put her in the mid lane where you can start, where you can keep her in a safe environment. And by pairing it up with a Viktor, it means that both your mid and your AD carry end up sharing farms. You kind of want that 1-3-1 with the mid, ideally. But the Viktor fits well in terms of the team composition style, where the Caitlyn and the Viktor are very nice at team fighting, and then you have this massive split push threat in the form of Fizz.
And let's see if Wunder can get himself an advantage. The final lock in there was the Poppy for Steve. I quite like the disengage power that hammer will bring to the table. And another well-rounded composition itself. I just think slower out the gates. This laning phase is going to be so important for Schalke. Do you think Schalke look for a lane swap? Do you think this is something that they want to get away? Like the Fizz into Poppy matchup, the Caitlyn Bard into Ezreal Karma?
It's something that you could go for. It's not going to hurt you if you go for the standard matchups, I don't think, given that the Poppy into Fizz is reasonable. It's not the best for the Poppy. It's not the best for the bottom lane, but you can get away with it. You can get through with it relatively unscathed. I think the safe option would be that, but maybe Schalke want to strut their stuff.
Let's find out what Schalke want to do. Guys, jump onto Twitter. Let us know. Hashtag SpyWin or hashtag S04Win. We're loading up for the last series of the day here on EU LCS 1. I believe that G2 are just starting to wrap up their second game. Subbed out Kickers, in fact.
Yes, they've actually brought in Expect, and that's happening over on stream too. But
can't wait to watch that game later. But yes.
So, I actually prefer Schalke's composition overall because I think it makes a little bit more sense. You have this mid-game spike with the Azir and the Ezreal, who, once they've got those 2 items, will be able to deal a lot of damage, especially around these dragons and barons. A lot of teams like to value these days. And then you have really nice disengage setup with the Gragas and with the Poppy. But on top of that, the Karma acts as sort of a mitigator between the two. She can either act as that person to go, right, let's start the fight, let's use the Gragas to find a pick, or let's disengage. One on that sort of discount Sivir, as I heard Pyra talk about earlier. So it's a very well-rounded comp that has very clearly defined win conditions, which is wait for mid to late game, keep opponents at arm's length, do damage from a distance, and then once we got the damage down, force the fight.
And the caveat is you have to keep them at arm's length through the early game.
Yes.
Because I do think there are some tools for Splyce to make use of. But a lot of it also hinges on Trashy, right? If these standard lanes, standard Australia lanes, come to pass, which looks to be the case, then Trashy and Gilius are going to have some opportunity for shenanigans.
They need to be very mindful, though, because Splyce have no idea that they're in the bush.
Oh, no! Mickey gets caught out. He even flashes, gets the stun down. Schalke can flash forward, but the Mystic Shot gives first blood.
Oh, Splyce, you are not expecting that whatsoever. They were reliant on the fact that they'd caught Schalke off guard by going for the lane swap. But that's actually quite surprising because you mentioned it earlier on. If any team was going to go for the lane swap, it would be Schalke. So it seems that Splyce, they wanted to try and catch the bottom lane out of position at the Krugs, catch them a little bit off guard, but instead, they were the ones that ended up getting caught off guard, and they give first blood over to Schalke.
Now, what does that mean for MrRallez? Very early in the game, so it is a diminishing return. Got himself 500 gold. Early to tier is what I'm expecting. Let's see if MrRallez agrees. Fox and Sencux trading. A lot of minions for Sencux to deal with, but he comes out in a better position. So Fox gets chunked down. Sencux walks away happy.
Putting a bit of pressure down onto Trashy as well. So by having that vision onto Trashy, you can be very mindful of the early ganks that he might try to set up. But in this bottom/top lane, this duo lane, it's actually quite good right now for MrRallez and Sprattel because as we were discussing during Champions, like this Bard Caitlyn can be very difficult to deal with. And by getting that first kill onto the Bard means that Schalke have got that early push, and it's making that lane phase big.
Early level 2, additional spells to work with, and that instantly means lane control. Fox is really getting chunked down. Trashy in from behind, flashes available, flashes into the knockup. Defensive one from Fox, so trading flash for flash. That's going to be worth for Splyce.
Fox playing very aggressive in the middle lane, really wants to put some pressure down onto Sencux, try and force him underneath the turret. And the strange thing for me is the fact that Fox even knew which half of the map Trashy was on. You can see the ward on your minimap. He spotted Trashy out on the Raptor camp, yet he still decides to overextend in the middle lane. And as a result of that overconfidence, he gives away both his summoner spells.
So that'll be good for Sencux. Give him some freedom in that lane, give him the ability to apply more pressure. And as expected, a very early tier here for MrRallez, 3.5 minutes. Despite actually losing CS because of that back, I think the potential net gain could be good.
I would argue that it's that MrRallez can be pretty happy with that, simply because having that tier, the sooner it gets stacked up, the sooner he hits that spike. So nice pickup from him. It looks like Sencux is actually going to get the very early blue buff from Trashy. Obviously on that Rek'Sai, you don't need the mana as much as he would like it, which means that he can actually start putting a bit more pressure back onto Fox.
Yeah, and especially because Fox has no summoner spells. So I think that's quite clever from Splyce, right? It's not as needed on the Rek'Sai, and it's going to give Sencux even more tools to control this lane.
As a mid laner, there's nothing more obnoxious than burning all your mana to get a bit of a harassment down, to then find that your opponent has got a blue buff and you haven't been given one, and now it's almost impossible to ever trade back with them, because you know that all the mana that you expend, they can expend the same mana, yet they'll be able to keep these trades up because they get that return. So, smart from Splyce, as you said, and it will enable Sencux to get a little bit back in the mid lane.
Alright, so Sencux can see if he can pull ahead in CS. Still currently even. We caught a quick glimpse there of Wunder. No flash on Fizz, not a big surprise, but Wunder on his Fizz, Steve on his Poppy, 32 to 38. Small CS advantage for Steve, but he shoved the wave in, so Wunder will be playing catch-up.
So to talk a little bit more about this Fizz, because it's not something that we're used to seeing. We have seen it banned a couple times throughout the day. This is likely to be the full tank Fizz. Early on, what you'll do is you'll get the Corrupting Potion for that bit of sustain, and then often you'll go back for the Dark Seal, because what Fizz likes to do is he plays in a similar way to that tank top Echo, where you're basically obnoxious. That is pretty much your title. You like to sit onto the back line and you never die, because by going full tank and having that slipperiness in your nature, it becomes very difficult for the enemy team to actually lock you down. And if you just look at Schalke's lineup, they have very little hard crowd control to actually keep him in place and focus him.
So let's find out if Splyce can make use of that ability. Where was Mikyx was able to land that Cosmic Binding. MrRallez took a bit of chunk, but it was returned. And Wunder, body slam flash, that's what Gilius needs. I'm not going to use it, even though there's no flash from Wunder, he's able to just play for Viktor away. Very, very good Emperor's Divide. That throws Trashy under the tower. Chilling Smite comes down, there's no ultimate. Chaos Storm chases forward, one more tick. Sencux gets the kill.
Great execution from Splyce. They knew that there were no summoner spells available on Fox. Trashy walks into the lane. He doesn't panic or anything. He waits to get knocked underneath the turret. That means that Fox has no disengage left. That allows Sencux to aggressively flash in and pick himself up that kill.
So first gank from Gilius in that bottom lane does not yield results. But Trashy on his Rek'Sai has already blown a summoner spell and got his team a kill. So pretty good advantage here for Splyce. And Trashy versus Gilius was our featured matchup coming into the game. Here's that play once more.
Yeah, it was just simply a matter of Fox using that ultimate maybe a little bit preemptively, because early on, Trashy's not going to be the damage dealer Sencux is. And the fact that Sencux was level 6 means that as long as he can land that ultimate, you're going to really suffer. So perhaps Fox could have just held onto his ultimate and used it on Sencux instead. But then we do have to remember that the duration of the ultimate has been reduced now on 6-11. So that was in part why Sencux was able to get that kill.
Yeah, I think Sencux actually had his flash going into that as well. So potentially could have flashed over those Sand Soldiers. But of course, that's hindsight, right?
Well, he doesn't need to now because the duration of the wall's been reduced. So that is another thing about Azir. His ability to siege has been significantly reduced, because no longer on the Arise can you actually use it on a turret anymore. So that when you leave an Azir in the mid lane now, just as if you try to set up a roam, it's not as devastating compared to what it is.
Farm Alarm was thrown down by Trashy as MrRallez is trying to shove the tower up. First back here for Kobbe. Will net himself that BF sword, the dagger, pink ward, down 400 gold. Basically, that kill that MrRallez was able to pick up earlier. And MrRallez has got himself a mana immune. So 8-minute mana immune. That is a very, very good early itemization spike that will just allow Schalke to get to this mid game ever so slightly earlier. Although one thing I've only just noticed, plus 20 CS for Wunder over Steve.
Yep. Wunder, by going for this Fizz, he... while Steve isn't going to die in the 1 versus 1 matchup because Wunder, he's not really itemizing for full AP, he's more going towards tank. As Mikyx needs to be a little bit mindful here.
Gonna be in trouble. Magical Journey. That was fantastic, actually.
Was it?
Although we run straight into MrRallez. Another fantastic play. Mikyx, Cosmic Bindings onto Gilius. Throws down the Tempered Fate, flashes away. And Mikyx, well, he had to use a lot, but he saved his life.
And he gets the deep ward down, which was his whole goal off the back of that play. While I do want to praise Mikyx for his use of abilities to actually get out of that fight, he has to be very mindful of his opponent's position. He had no vision on Sprattel. He had no idea where Gilius was, and while the objective of the ward was to try and identify Gilius' location, unfortunately it almost cost Mikyx this one. But
shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Yes.
I think that's what it boils down to.
Yep.
Look how this lane is now shaken out. Sprattel gets taken well below half hit points from good poke on Kobbe and Mikyx. And I'm looking at Mikyx, no flash available, so if Gilius wanted to repeat his gank or roam around, it could cause some trouble for Splyce's duo lane.
The thing we have to remember is that Schalke's composition is very reliant on the mid-to-late game, so as much as Gilius could look for these early gaps, it might not necessarily be worth its time, because all Schalke want is an extended laning phase. They just want to guarantee item number 1, item number 2, and then we'll look to make plays. And as long as Gilius is prioritizing control of a vision and making sure that Trashy can't set up a good early game for Splyce, then Schalke have everything they want.
I think the vision's a very good point, because last week Schalke lost the game to H2K because they disregarded warding the Baron pits, and H2K were able to sneak that away and pick up a game, literally because of the buff. But Schalke need to be very wary, because one Splyce their games last week was picks in the mid to late game. And that's something that the Splyce composition can actually do very, very well. I'm just going to look for Steve. There's support from Trashy, but got a lot of damage down. There wasn't really a lot of kill threats.
No. That is full tank Fizz view. If that was in the mid lane, I would have been a lot more worried about that, as Kobbe takes a lot of damage.
So much flash forward. Mystic shot doesn't kill Kobbe. Summon a heal keeps him alive.
That is so close. Ooh, Fox, you might want to try and pick this one up, though.
No, I don't think he can. There's a flash available. Tempered Fate comes out. Mikyx once again saves his life. Even cheeky enough to stun Fox against the wall, but Schalke will break open this tower, chunking it down. Uncontested.
I was looking at Fox right there going, you have many options for a play right now. You know that Mikyx has no flash, you could commit for the kill, but Fox decided that his summoner spells are more valuable than overcommitting for that kill. Decides not to pick that one up, but fortunately for Schalke, they still get quite a lot of damage down onto that tier 1 turret in the top lane. Yeah,
maybe able to take it, actually should be able to take it. Though MrRallez is backing away, leaving Sprattel to finish it off. Supporters coming up here from Kobbe. He's picked himself up that recurve bow. Mikyx can look to engage. Magical Journey, again, very good. Slow comes down from Sprattel, and potential root dissuades any further action, but the tower's still standing.
Does still stand. Looks like that MrRallez was more interested in going back and picking up his She. Wants to have that damage threat so that in the lane he can trade a little bit better with the Caitlyn, who now, having completed both that BF sword and the recurve bow, as you mentioned, will be a little bit tougher to deal with now moving forward. But Trashy is the guy I want to keep my eye on. Again, looking for another gank in the mid.
Let's find out. Knock up connects onto Fox. Chaos Storm dropped by Sencux, and Fox is forced to arise and shift away.
So what I actually really like about this play is, notice that Splyce didn't hard commit for the kill. Their whole objective was to force Fox away, because after Fox tried to set up the roam in the top, they actually lost a lot of damage down onto this mid turret, and now with the 2 members of Trashy and Sencux, they may be able to get even more into this mid tier 1 and take it for themselves.
It seems to be the objective. The rest of Splyce, though, are putting a lot of pressure up top. MrRallez left alone as Sprattel backed away. And Splyce, they've got themselves 1,000 gold, but there's a number of towers very close to falling over. It just depends on which team can get the advantage. Trashy, I think, spotted Gilius, but decided not to challenge for that red buff.
So I'm just looking at some of the matchups right now, and it does seem that Steve able to close the CS gap ever so slightly, as two top laners just continue their wet noodle fight down the bottom lane. As the junglers against teams still very even.
To be fair, I think Wunder's wet noodle is lined with lead or something. I think his hit's just a little bit harder.
Just a bit, as he is actually getting a bit of down to Steve, but Steve is like, why is a rabbit attacking?
Yeah.
Who gave this rabbit some kind of weapon?
Yeah, that buckler shield from Steve, very useful in preventing some of the damage. Mikyx, you know, every time Mikyx's been under threat, he's landed a good Cosmic Binding, pretty good Tempered Fates defensively. I want to see if he can do that aggressively and proactively to set things up for the rest of his team, because Wunder's got that teleport. He's got Chum the Waters.
It's a bit of a risk, though. Something you have to be very mindful of is overcommitting in this early game. But Splyce, this is kind of the moment that they need to try and make these plays. They have the tools in their kit to set it up. You have the Tempered Fate from Mikyx. You have the TP flank from Wunder. You've also got the global ultimate from Trashy. But instead, Schalke are just going to pick themselves up a free turret.
Yeah, Splyce actually backed away. All of that work earlier from Schalke allowed them to secure it. You didn't see if Gilius walked over a ward. I don't think that he did. Gilius has snuck his way in. Yeah, Kobbe and Mikyx have no idea. Body slam flash into the Gragas ulti. Kobbe flashes forward to find a journey. Will not find it instead. Back to the fountain.
Fantastic execution coming out from Schalke. Gilius buying his time, waiting for the ever so slight overextension from Kobbe, threw out the ultimate into the binding from Sprattel to then set up MrRallez to pick himself up the kill.
Well executed and good game awareness, really. You know, Gilius, he waited in that bush. A bit unfortunate for Kobbe and Mikyx to walk forward. Get themselves caught out. Steve now under some threat. Trashy could dive, but diving a Poppy. Let's see what Steve can do. Flash is available. Keeper's Verdict hammers Trashy away. Trashy's looking to re-engage. Tower is chunking down Wunder. And Wunder's already used Chum the Waters, so he's going to be able to get away.
So two big things happened in that dive. The first was Wunder actually using his E aggressively, which meant that ideally, when you're diving with a Fizz, is you want to start with the Fizz, and then you use that E to then remove tower aggro, swap it onto the other target, and you can keep DPSing underneath the turret. And the second was the fact that Steve managed to land his ultimate onto Trashy, knowing that the turret aggro was onto Wunder. So Wunder could not continue with that play, and Steve was able to get out alive.
I was looking for the Bard ulti, it didn't find it. Gilius is in trouble, knocked up in the air. Chaos Storm chasing him down, and it's Mikyx's Ignite, I believe, that secures the last hit.
Gilius, you have no flash. You are playing with an Azir who is surprisingly mobile, has the ultimate for disengage, and also has both of his summoner spells. There was no need for you to overextend in the mid lane, try and help your mid laner out when in reality you didn't need any help at all. You give away another kill to Splyce, which in terms of the early game, this is how Splyce like to play. They like to find these picks, find these opportunities that can then build them a lead that they can just snowball from.
Well, it needs to start growing, because right now Splyce is still even. Take that back, that tower they killed will give them that 1,000 gold advantage, and that is being accrued by some CS advantages, plus 10 in the top lane, plus 14, 15 in the jungle, plus 10 in the mid lane. It looks like Sprattel and MrRallez, they'll instantly reply. So trading towers there, Vedius.
So it does look like the first dragon did in fact go down onto Splyce, which was the Ocean Drink. So they'll have a little bit more sustain, which is always a valuable thing to have, especially when you're going up against the Pope. But have a look at this. Now, the damage that Splyce were able to get down onto this mid turret earlier is now actually coming into fruition. They pick up that turn on in the mid.
And it's interesting to see both Splyce and Schalke, I don't want to say not able to defend, but not in a position, I think, there we go, to defend their towers. So 1, 2, 3 towers fell in the space of the last minute and a half. And that's all because of all the work that's been dealt in the first 15 minutes of the game.
This is somewhat what we expected. Bit of a slow early game, couple picks here and there, but primarily around the mid. This 2-item spike that the vast majority of the players are waiting for will be when the action really starts to kick off. And that's what I'm hoping for from both these teams. We know how Splyce, not afraid to press that go button if they see an opportunity.
For better or worse.
Yeah, for better or worse. And then Schalke, the same really. Both very similar in terms of their playstyle. The big difference is something that you mentioned earlier. Schalke's vision has let them down from time to time. And if you just have a look at the map right now, there is very little deep vision coming out from Schalke. The fact that they have been able to take 2 turrets and are yet to extend their vision line so they can look to take this mid one is a bit of an indicator of their tendency around wards.
Got themselves 3 pink wards at the very least, so there is, I think, the tools to push that vision and to set something up. Baron will be spawning in about 2 minutes' time, and will become a threat in about 5 to 10 minutes. But before any of that happens, Mikyx is once again caught behind enemy lines, or in the middle of enemy lines. He'll take a magical journey, I think. Almost rooted, but is able to escape with his life.
Why does he turn into a penguin? It doesn't make any sense to me why he just turns into a penguin.
That is a question you will have to ask the skins team.
It's just, like, even thematically, like, Bard doesn't even slightly look like a penguin.
Yeah,
There's a beard.
But Meowkai makes sense.
Yeah, but it does, because it's a play on words. But like he doesn't turn into a cat when he flies, does he? He's still a tree, just in a cat costume.
Tell me how you really feel, Vedius. But tell me after this Rift Herald fight. Trashy and Wunder backed away, Chaos Storm comes down. He's going to start burning down Steve, but with the Sunfire Cape and the Visage, the Spectre's Cowl rather, working out in his favor. So Teleport's going to come down here from Schalke. MrRallez is running for his life. Chum the Waters connects, but the damage is blocked. Mikyx ends up helping MrRallez temporarily. Exhaust comes down. Wunder's going to get pinned against the wall, and MrRallez takes him down. Turn their attention to Kobbe and Mikyx. The timing on Tempered Fate.
Oh, just ever so slight miscommunication. It was so obvious to see what Wunder was trying to do. He wanted to get the CC down onto MrRallez because he thought that the Tempered Fate had missed. MrRallez was like, hang on a second, they're both coming at me at the same time. I can just soak both these up. Initially, MrRallez feels like he's safe because his support is there, but the teleport flank comes in. MrRallez realizes he's left up a creek without a paddle, but then this just ever so slight mistiming coming out between them means that MrRallez is able to buy enough time for the rest of his team to then come in. Steve gets the knockback down onto Mikyx. It ends up being a 3 versus 2. They get the collapse down onto Wunder, and this Fizz, if you actually get the target focus down, he's actually quite easy to kill. Very
well played by Schalke, and they thwart the pick potential that Splyce can put on the board. And if Schalke are able to outplay Splyce like that, you know, when the teleports are available again, when those ultimates are thrown down again, that is a good sign for Schalke going into the mid to late game, especially because their Ezreal has got Iceborne, has got Mirror Mana, is 3-0, and is now starting most likely that later in the game.
These are the spikes that we've been raving about. Having already completed, the advantage of getting that very early tier means that the Mirror Mana is now, Mana Mune, sorry, is now completed. No, it is the Mirror Mana.
Yeah, when it gets upgraded. Yeah, when it gets upgraded.
But the Iceborne combined with that as well a bit of lifesteal, means that right now he is so much stronger than the Caitlyn. And this is the opportunity that Schalke have been waiting for. If they don't force a fight now, then they're missing a really big spike that they have over their opponent.
Well, they got 30 seconds to wait for the next dragon. It will even out that Ocean Drake score. And there's no TP available for Steve, so if they wanted their tanky frontliner, or an additional one rather, they'll need him to drop by. Though, saying that, Gilius isn't the most beefy. He's got himself the Runic Echoes as well as that Locket, so a lot of utility in his jungle Gragas. A lot of pick-making potential. Wunder plus Sencux going to chase down Steve and force him away, but yeah, this is kind of what we're expecting from Schalke. They wanted to play for the mid-game, mid to late game. They've got this team comp that arguably is a little more versatile, and this time around I think their vision's a little better if you look at that mini-map, Vedius.
It certainly is. It looks to me like they want to set up for this dragon. They know that they have a great setup right now to actually force a fight, but it's actually Splyce that get there sooner. They've actually got the positional advantage, and we could see a fight right now.
Yeah, especially because Fox is nowhere near. Schalke, despite the vision, despite half being set up, either opt out, chose not to fight, or simply mistimed it. Weren't ready in time.
I think it was just a big misplay from Fox. He identified, oh, I've got the gold for MrRallez. I need to go back and pick this item up. Schalke say, okay, well, I guess the MrRallez right now is more valuable to have than trying to force a fight without you being in prime position to do so. And they just give away the dragon. Giving away 2 Ocean Drakes could be quite difficult, actually, for the composition that Schalke have drafted for themselves, because it is very much reliant on, again, keeping people at arm's length, this sort of mid-range style of play. And when you have that much regeneration, as long as you back off for a bit, heal back up, then you can just come back into the fight ready to go.
But Splyce are going to need the time to actually back up, or the space to back up, right? So for Splyce, they don't want to give up more ground. Because the moment you have no more fallback space, then you can't get any of the benefit from those Ocean Drakes. So we'll find out whether they can. Ooh, there's a juicy next dragon. It will be the Infernal. And we'll potentially see one of those team fights. Splyce are still defending the outer turret. So, you know, it's looking good for Schalke, but it hasn't converted yet into map control, so to speak.
To me, it's just looking very slow between the two teams. They just seem hesitant to really force anything, and obviously it's easier said than done. It's very easy for me from the caster desk being like, okay, start the fight now, and actually putting it into practice. They might be looking for one now, though.
Take a look at this. Tempered Fate catches Fox. There's not a lot of follow-up, though. There's a good knock-up onto Gilius. Fox is getting melted down. Emperor's Divide comes out just before Fox is killed. Steve winds up the hammer. He sends Sencux packing, and Wunder's got himself a kill into Gilius. They've traded 2 for 2, but it's not done yet. Kobbe's just joined the engagement, and MrRallez is running for his life. It is a mid and jungle for a top and jungle. And Schalke are forced to disengage.
It looks like that Splyce want to keep this pressure going. They've made their way onto this tier 2 turret in the middle lane. They've got a lot of poke available.
Gonna need to use it if they can. Steve is caught out by the gravity field, by the chompers, by the binding. Sprattel lockdown as well. MrRallez actually used that arcane shift forward very aggressively. And this all started with Schalke maybe being too eager on that mid lane tower.
They made it easy for Mikyx to just land that multi-man ultimate onto Schalke, which just then set up for Splyce to get the engagement that they want. So have a look at this. 4 members forward. Gilius looking for an aggressive pick, but it forces Fox to overextend. That allows Splyce to get all the damage down that they need. Great knock-up from Trashy to then follow up with Wunder's ultimate as well, and that then allows Sencux on the back line to just throw that Chaos Storm down, get huge amounts of damage onto Fox, but the problem is there is the overcommitment from Splyce. MrRallez and Sprattel are really good at kiting back, and when you have the additional peel of Steve, it becomes very difficult to stick onto the back line. So Schalke, even after a good initiation from Splyce, were able to turn something around.
Get themselves some kill on the board. 5-4 in favor of Schalke. They're down a tower, and Schalke are down 2 Ocean Drakes. Just hit 25 minutes. Splyce have earned themselves 2,000 gold lead, mostly because of that tower and substantial CS advantage for Wunder. He's up around 30. Looking at the itemization, you know, tanky Fizz up top. You can see him going toe-to-toe with Steve. Lichbane completed for Sencux, as well as MrRallez. Hex core still not perfect, actually. That's a little bit later than what I think I'm used to seeing.
Oh, okay, so Sencux has actually decided to go for the Lichbane. Now, this was something that we in the office theory crafted very early on with the Viktor, because High was actually doing a lot in solo queue where he was actually going for the Lichbane build as opposed to the Twilight build.
What does it mean?
What does it mean? So basically what it means is if you're going to build Rylas, you're playing around your ultimate, because the slow is keeping people inside the Chaos Storm, which is allowing you to get multiple ticks off. But because of the abundance of... Ooh, look at Mikyx.
He's going to die. Not yet. True Shot Barrage is not available. Summon a heal used. Mikyx stays alive for not much longer.
Fox gets himself the kill. So
they interrupted your story.
Sencux's build couldn't help Mikyx, and now Schalke's going to get themselves a tier 1 turret in the mid.
They absolutely will. RAL's arcane shifts forward. This could be very crucial. Tempered Fate is not available to disrupt Schalke. Mikyx even committed his flash to that one, but still got taken down. Schalke, they're peeling away. This is hopefully a Baron bait and not a Baron attempt.
I was going to say, please don't go for Baron right now. Your Baron taking team is not the fastest, and at 27 minutes into the game, it is a very big risk to take. But it looks like, ooh, Steve's going for the engage.
Flash for flash. Nobody gets pinned against the wall, but Kobbe and Sencux get away with their lives. Steve is able to trade 1 for 2, and Sencux even drops a Chaos Storm in case any potential re-engage would happen. This is buying time for Wunder to get into that inner bottom turrets.
He just throws that out like it's nothing. I mean, it literally, whenever he has it, he just uses it whenever it's available. So quite like this style of play from Sencux, and just demonstrating that he's not actually reliant on his ultimate for the damage. But have a look at this from Mikyx. You have all this trap line that Schalke completely avoid. Mikyx gets caught out of position entirely. Fox goes in for the aggressive pick, gets the damage down. And then this is where Schalke set up for the siege onto the tier 1. They have plenty of wave clear available with Sencux and Kobbe. And so to guarantee the turret, Steve comes in from the flank, goes for the dive, and then you force both flashes out from Sencux and Kobbe.
We need to see if those flashes become relevant in the next few fights. Gilius turns his attention to Kobbe, flashes away, but is taken down where he stands. Mikyx onto Sprattel, but Schalke, they're completely split off. Splyce have found a key pick, which is something that is crucial for their team and their composition to succeed.
This is something that we've seen a lot from both these teams last week, where random players just randomly get picked off. There's no reason for Gilius to be that extended all the way up in the mid lane without the appropriate vision, without the support from your team. You had your flash available, you hold on to it for the longest amount of time. You have a huge amount of disengage available and you decide not to use it. You give away the third Drake of the game over to Splyce. That's going to be an additional 8% AP and AD. And on a champion like Viktor, that is massive gain at this point.
And it gets even better. The next dragon is going to be another Infernal just before Elder Drake. Baron has been started. Splyce, they are forcing Schalke's hand. Baron is going lower. It's 1,000 hit points. It's picked up by Splyce. Schalke, they can't even engage. They didn't have Gilius with them. Splyce take a pick, an Infernal, a Baron, and are now in absolute control.
Decisive call coming out from Splyce to just go straight for the Baron. Schalke weren't expecting that whatsoever because they actually went back to farming. They're going to give a massive objective over to Splyce, and this is exactly what they need to really tunnel into the base of Schalke.
And now we get to test their late game. Because Schalke, Splyce as a team, have shown that when they find picks, they can then punish. They can play very well, but when it comes to just head-to-head team fighting, there are some questions there. Vedius, before we talk about that, I'd like to welcome everybody from EU LCS 2. I believe that G2 have finished their series, so welcome here to EU LCS 1 to give you a TLDR. Splyce has just cracked open this game. They got a pick onto Gilius, their third dragon of the game, and a Baron, but before that, it was very, very even. And now Schalke have to defend for the duration of this buff.
Yes, and the most important question of all is why does Bard turn into a penguin? Splyce set up for a siege down on the bottom tier 2 turret. They have this Baron, they have the Caitlyn, as well as the poke coming out from Sencux, and they're going for a fight.
Gilius knocks Sencux into the team, but nobody from Schalke is ready. Gilius loses his life for delivering the present. Luckily for Schalke, they take down Wunder. Steve is rooted in place by that cosmic binding. They trade 1-for-1, but Schalke lose a tower in the trade, and the man asking the important questions of why Mikyx becomes a penguin when his Bard goes through a magical journey is Andy Vedius Day. For the EU LCS 2 viewers who are hearing him on the caster disc. So break down this fight for me, Vedius.
So have a look. The person that I want you to keep your eyes on is actually Steve. So initially, he's just trying to keep his attention down onto Wunder. Yes, Gilius ends up going down, but the disengage ultimate onto 3 members of Splyce enables Schalke to actually get that return kill and actually stop any further sieges coming out from Splyce. If it wasn't for that ultimate from Steve, things could have gone a lot worse for Schalke.
Could have gone worse, but luckily, the mechanical outplay saves them. Unfortunately for Schalke, it doesn't change the fact that they are still down 3,000 gold. And they are absolutely losing control of this map. Look at the line of wards in that right-hand quadrant, the blue buff side of Schalke's jungle. It is just littered with spy vision.
So what Schalke need to do at this point is just go for the 50-50 play. You have the Karma, you have the Poppy, you have enough vision right now in your half of the jungle to set up for a potential flank, and if you can just get onto this Caitlyn or this Viktor, you have the damage to just one-shot them. You just need to use the tools in your kit to find that pick.
Yeah, but they need Fox there as well. Fox was still in base, went back to finish off that death cap, I believe, and that will be a big spike for him, but it's going to be a difficult fight. It's 30 seconds left on this Baron buff. Gilius looking for the engage. Kobbe's able to get away with the net. Gilius loses his life. Tempered Fate makes Schalke golden, but there's no gold medals for you. MrRallez, Arcane shifts away. Now it's Splyce. They've advanced too far forward. Sencux is running for his life. The Cosmic Binding catches Fox against the wall, and Steve's running for more. He pins Mikey against the wall. Rallez is knocked up by Trashy, and everybody is dying. It's a 2-for-3, but it's Schalke that get aced underneath their turret. Kobbe survives with the help of Mikyx, and they take the turret as well.
That was actually an unbelievably close fight between the two teams. It all started with Gilius trying to find that engage. This was the engage we were just talking about that he needed to go for. You had to go for that 50-50 play, and while it initially went abysmally for Schalke, things actually started to look great for them because Fox, he gets a great ultimate, he actually keeps them at arm's length, which is exactly what Schalke needed to do, but then this was the point that you mentioned. Good luck keeping Wunder at arm's length. The moment he got onto that backline, he was just doing so much work for Splyce, and then with Kobbe dealing that extra damage, it just went all in the favor of Splyce. So have a look at how this all gets set up. Gilius goes for the 50-50 play, the execution just wasn't on point, he gets dropped immediately. The Tempered Fate actually gives enough time for Schalke to reevaluate their situation, and Fox goes to the play. So now they're at that mid-range gap where their DPS is the most efficient. They can now just keep people at a distance, but this, the binding from Mikyx with the follow-up from Wunder, drops Fox, and that is a lot of damage lost for Schalke. Mad props to Mikyx because he has been landing so many phenomenal bindings in these fights that has really turned this advantage into Splyce.
And I think the entire game, Mikyx has just had a really mechanically proficient performance. Even when he's out of position, he's able to mechanically fight his way out. That Baron completely opened up this game, and Vedius, that's 3 Barons across 3 days that Splyce has been able to pick up. And that's exactly what they got in the entirety of the spring split. Now, to be fair, they have played 5 games, of course, so there's a few more games per day, but regardless of that, growth. We're seeing better performances from Splyce, and better team fights as well.
To be fair, from Splyce, we've been giving a lot of praise to Kobbe and how in the last split, maybe we didn't speak up enough about him, and as an AD carry, he's adapted a lot. But I feel like it's actually a large part of Mikyx enabling Kobbe to really shine.
And we'll find out if he can do it again. Schalke, they're challenging for the Infernal Drake. The next one will be Elder. Tempered Fate finds one, but it may not matter. Dragon secured by Schalke. That's an additional AD and AP. Steve is now taking the brunt of the Chaos Storm, and the fight's become messy. MrRallez been jumped on. Splyce, they've got themselves a double. They've secured their 3rd kill of the fight. Trashy and Wunder looking for more. That's a triple kill for Kobbe, and it's going to be Sencux that closes out the ace. Despite losing the Dragon, it does not matter. They win the fight.
And Splyce may very well be able to end the game. Have a look at the teleport from Wunder up in the top lane. They've got 2 super minions, they've got all 5 members, and this could be game 1 going over to Splyce.
There's no doubt about it, Vedius. Splyce are onto the Nexus turret, and after 30 minutes of going even, Splyce find a crucial pick onto Schalke that opens up the game, that opens up the Nexus, and Splyce are 1-0 in the series.
Splyce taking that game in slow early game fashion, but in these mid to late game fights, I can't praise Mikyx enough, especially in that final team fight, because it was so good what Mikyx was doing with those bindings. He landed the crucial binding onto Fox, which completely denied him from using his ultimate, getting at his damage, and that just meant MrRallez was left with the fishes. He literally got dropped into the deep end, and he had to fight sharks all by himself, and he couldn't do it.
Bunny rabbit sharks, they're the most deadly of them all. But for Splyce, you know, the presumptions after watching week 1 was that their team fighting was a little messy, their team fighting was a little sloppy, and even with a Baron buff and a 7k advantage, they still traded 3 for 5. So that was tested true. The other thing that was proven is that they can find picks. Their vision game opens up opportunities that they take advantage of.
Yeah, it just seems to be the style of play that's working for them, but team fighting is still something that they definitely need to work on, because you could see how close a lot of those fights actually were, and if it was just one cosmic binding that went slightly to the left, slightly to the right, it could have gone horribly wrong for Splyce.
Could have, but did not. Splyce ended up picking up the first Nexus kill of the series. We're going to head to the analyst desk to find out more.